Hello and welcome to the Anime Advocate, the show about what to watch and what to look for from ADV Films. Something I've noticed throughout my years of watching anime is that I seem to gravitate towards a lot of series that drastically matured during the course of their run. Shows like Evangelion and Welcome to the NHK have always fascinated me with their unique ability to draw audiences with one premise, before pulling the rug underneath them with something completely different. Mecha action titles can develop into hard-hitting introspectives, just as otaku cringe comedies can become sophisticated commentaries on social anxiety and relationships. Based on the 1999 manga by Daisuke Moriyama, Gonzo's 2003 adaptation of Chrono Crusade is a perfect example of this genre of storytelling, taking what is at face value a supernatural action comedy and moulding it into a darker, more foreboding tale that challenges perceptions of faith and the charity of others. In today's episode, I will be thoroughly analysing Chrono Crusade's tonal evolution from laughs to tears, and how well it achieves its narrative goals following this successful but risky formula. Does the show's metamorphosis prove satisfactory, or does it fall flat on its face? Let's find out. In 1924, Rosette Christopher lives a mundane childhood, looking after her younger brother Joshua at their Michigan orphanage. Although blessed with holy powers which allow him to heal others, Joshua himself suffers from incredibly poor health, confining him to his bed for a good portion of his life. Inadvertently unlocking the seal to an old tomb during one of their many treks in the forest, Rosette and Joshua stumble across an ancient but physically youthful devil introducing himself as Chrono. After helping him recuperate, having expressed no apparent fear of him, the two orphans develop a strong friendship with Chrono, allowing him to find some happiness after running away from a troubled past. Unfortunately, Chrono's past catches up with him when Ion, the leader of a renegade faction of devils called the Sinners, tricks Joshua into taking Chrono's severed horns. Granting him powers that are beyond his control and compromising his mental stability, Ion takes Joshua away as part of a grander plan to one day exploit the powers of God's 12 apostles, of which Joshua is the Apostle of Hope. After witnessing the horror of Joshua's new powers, Rosette pleads with Chrono to help save her little brother at any cost. Knowing he lacks the power to take on Ion alone, Chrono reluctantly agrees to form a human-devil contract with Rosette, allowing him to tap into the strength once offered by his horns, but at a severe cost to her own life. 4 years later, during the peak of the Roaring Twenties, Rosette has become a feisty, up-and-coming exorcist for the Magdalene Order, a band of holy warriors assigned to protect civilians from demonic entities summoned by those who have become disillusioned with God. Teamed up with Chrono, she successfully rescues the Apostle of Charity Asmaria Henrik, becomes acquainted with an aloof jewel summoner called Satela Havenheit, and solves a number of supernatural cases in New York City whilst anticipating crucial information that could help save her brother. When intelligence finally confirms a sighting of Joshua in San Francisco, Rosette, Chrono, and Asmaria head out west to find him, with Satela offering them refuge at her stately mansion. Dark and difficult times await them though as the Sinners prepare to enact the Ritual of Atonement, a ceremony that, in the hands of Ion, could destroy the symbiotic balance between heaven and hell, allowing him to manipulate humanity as he sees fit. Requiring all 12 apostles to pull off this ritual, Rosette, Chrono, and the rest of the Magdalene Order must protect Asmaria from capture, form an uneasy alliance with an anti-Sinner devil faction, rescue Joshua, and prevent Ion from plunging the world into anarchy and chaos. Outside of its extravagant depiction of Christian mythology, Chrono Crusade is probably most renowned for its underlying sense of dread and the increasingly desperate circumstances it puts the audience through. If it was purely a horror series, it could have easily run the risk of undermining our ability to engage with the characters, but what I love most about the show is how well it eases the viewer into its darker storyline. The earliest episodes have a much stronger emphasis on action and comedy, focusing on the terrifying but generally everyday skirmishes assigned to Rosette and Chrono. We get a few hints towards their history and the significance of Rosette's watch, but it mostly maintains a lighter tone that helps us grow to like and relate to them as people. Once our heroes' backstories are fully laid out and they get the lead they've been waiting for to rescue Joshua, everything slowly but surely starts to go south. The ties that bind them grow stronger, but with each new revelation and savage encounter with the Sinners, their faith in themselves, and a god who seemingly won't help them, falters. These events culminate in a bittersweet reunion between brother and sister, with the tables turning in Ion's favour as he triggers the very ritual they sought to prevent. By that point, you've come to cherish those moments of levity between the four friends, making the hell they go through during the climax all the more heartbreaking. Chrono Crusade's treatment of collateral damage ironically serves as a great juxtaposition between the start of the show and the end of it. In the opening episodes, Rosette and Chrono causing more damage to the city than the demons is played for laughs, making the duo out as something of a Christian dirty pair. Following an intense brawl between Chrono and a brainwashed Joshua though, the fallout of such destruction is treated more realistic and consequential. Civilians are either crushed to death or severely injured, family members desperately search for one another, and the anguish towards the Magdalene Order's response to the tragedy is sieged upon by Ion, who instigates riots amongst the people. It's a contrast I only realised during my last viewing for this review, but I've really come to appreciate the writer's handling of the climax more because of it. But of course, it's Chrono Crusade's cast of characters that make this emotional rollercoaster of a story work. Asmaria is so precious as the Apostle of Charity that, in the wake of her liberation from devil worshippers, you really want to see her achieve happiness within the Magdalene Order. Sadly, her incredible powers, whilst miraculous in theory, frequently bring upon grave misfortune to those around her. Coupled with her supposed lack of usefulness on the front line, she can't help but see herself as nothing more than a burden, someone who will end up causing more pain to others than joy. Inspired by the selfless actions of her friends though, Asmaria is able to flourish into a more confident sister of the Order, her unbreakable faith in them in turn providing much needed optimism during an increasingly bloody conflict. First introduced as a rival exorcist, Satella at first doesn't take too kindly to Rosette's reckless personality and harbours a great distrust of Chrono due to her own painful history with devils. As they continue looking out for each other though, the Jewel Witch is able to shed whatever reservation she had for the two, opening her heart to an extent she is able to see Rosette, Chrono and Asmaria as something of a family. We also discover that, underneath that brash, upper-class exterior, actually lies a morose young woman desperate to live up to the example of her older sister Florette, who died trying to protect her. When Satella is unexpectedly forced to confront her sister, reanimated as Fiore by Ion with no memories of her intact, it's a very somber confrontation. Not only does she have to fight her beloved sibling with all the strength she can muster, but it also serves as the ultimate test of whether she can hold her own and move out of Florette's shadow. Rosette and Chrono though are the real bread and butter. The beauty of their relationship is that they're both characters who view their existences as lesser in value, but throughout their turmoil are able to grant each other the strength to not throw their lives away. Rosette didn't hesitate to make such a life-draining contract with Chrono, and her burning desire to save Joshua at any cost as the young exorcist continually pushed herself beyond her physical limit. Whilst noble in her intentions, this disregard for her own well-being becomes a major source of concern for Chrono, and especially Asmaria, who looks up to Rosette as an older sister. Chrono, meanwhile, is bound by a steadfast will to avoid repeating past mistakes. During his prime, he caused so much carnage as Ion's right-hand man, only coming to his senses when he developed an unlikely connection with the holy woman Mary of Magdalene. Mary's voluntary sacrifice to preserve Chrono's life force after a failed mutiny against Ion would forever haunt him, committing himself to a much stronger appreciation of life and rejecting any actions that would desecrate it. As such, the reformed devil is adamant in Rosette only unlocking the Watch's seal as a last resort, instead favouring any alternative to his true power that could help prolong his friend's time on Earth. Deep down though, both Devil and Contractor know that they can't run away from their destiny. Whatever they do, Rosette will die young, leaving Chrono to either die alongside her or be cursed to roam the Earth alone once again. It would be incredibly easy for them to have a passive attitude towards life, but having grown so close in their 4-year search for Joshua, it's so heartening of them to promise each other to never go at it alone. Their struggles won't let up and many tears will be shed, but hand in hand they will always face them together, whilst living life to the fullest in the time they have left. I think if Rosette and Chrono were written any other way, their grueling punishment would have all been for nothing. But dishing out said punishment, we have a delightfully devilish villain with the sinner leader Ion. Callously taking advantage of humans and his fellow devils whilst never letting up the facade of a merciful charmer, Ion's competence as an antagonist is honestly what gives Chrono Crusade's story as much weight as it has. Despite our hero's best efforts, he is consistently one step ahead of them and pretty much succeeds in fulfilling all of his goals. He does assemble all the apostles, he does trick Rosette into completing the ritual that will make her the new holy woman for him to manipulate. And by the end of the series, however brief in the grand scheme of things, he is successful in destabilising the balance between heaven and hell, allowing humanity to give in to their violent desires under the pretense of unrestrained freedom. If there's any knock I could give against Ion is that his defeat during the penultimate episode is a little anticlimactic, but as a sequence that's meant to focus more on Chrono finally confronting his past mistakes, I think it works just fine. Bigger doesn't always mean better, and a smaller, isolated bout between the two devils is actually sort of refreshing from the standard grand finale you'd expect. I know for certain not everyone will get behind Chrono Crusade. Its utilisation of Christian iconography might be considered sacrilegious, and with very little of the cast being given happy send-offs, their losses could be written off by some as pointless and cynical. Not every character's death can be considered equal for sure, but I wouldn't go as far as to call them pointless. Every sacrifice was always for the sake of another and paid service to the ultimate theme of the series, which is selflessness. The lengths people will go to help others and protect those they love. The beautiful ending, a controversial topic for both the anime and manga, I maintain was the most appropriate outcome for Rosette and Chrono for this very reason, and completes their own running subtext of time and accepting one's destiny. These two made a lot of sacrifices together, but seeing them enjoy their last precious moments in the peace and tranquility of the countryside left me with a great sense of relief. It's a pact that may have ended on a whimper, but it's a whimper that I will always follow up with a little smile. Animation for Chrono Crusade was handled by what was still known at the time as Gonzo Digimation, who had been setting the bar for high quality digital animation since their pioneering Blue Submarine No. 6 in 1998. Having refined their techniques further in productions such as Full Metal Panic, Gonzo had just about gotten to grips with all the trappings of digital animation by 2003, their 5 years of experience with the medium evident in the spectacular work on display here. Chrono Crusade not only provides a terrific depiction of 1920s America with authentic backdrops of New York City and San Francisco, but also uses the advanced compositing of the digital format to further enhance their environmental depth. Right from the opening episode, the seamless layering of fog, haze, candlelight, shadows, and other effects evoke a strong gothic atmosphere that the artists consistently implement for the rest of the series. Beyond pretty backdrops, the show's character animation is also on point, particularly where the clashes against devils are concerned. Each creature is given their own tricks and surprises, and, while I've certainly seen bloodier anime, the violence here is a lot more effective just for how much the attacks register visually. Proving flexible for both light-hearted and dramatic situations, Moriyama's original character designs are faithfully adapted to animation, with just the odd occasion where they look a little off-model. This is most obvious in some of the smaller scaled episodes, such as Rosette and Satella shopping for Chrono's medicine. Gonzo was smart enough to not keep such shots on screen for too long, however, and the roughness of the drawings do lend themselves quite well to the more comedic scenes. Masami Ito, best known today for her work on Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, handled the soundtrack for Chrono Crusade, which juggles a decent variety of styles for whatever mood the show feels like going for. Bringing out the jazzier instruments to emphasise the comedy and 1920s setting, while injecting ominous piano notes and choruses to the darker, more foreboding sequences, it's all terrific stuff that complements the whirlwind of emotions generated visually. The choir pieces sung by Asmaria are particularly lovely, as is the ending theme Sayonara Solitaire contributed by B-Train legend Yuki Kajura. All in all, the work put into Chrono Crusade holds up very well in 2022. If it weren't for the 4:3 aspect ratio and a few dated looking CG flyby shots, I truly believe the series could be released today and very few people would turn their nose up at it. Courtesy of Matt Greenfield and ADV's finest talent of the day, Chrono Crusade boasts a superb English dub, with the main focal point being two remarkably versatile lead performances from Hilary Haig and Greg Ayres. Hilary initially blesses the series with her usual high-pitched vocals that subtly honour the more irreverent tone of the early episodes. But once the story starts to go down a darker path, she gracefully transitions to a more delicate performance that better encompasses the turmoil Rosette is going through.
But why? Why are you talking like that? There has to be something we can No, Rosette!
You can't let the last 4 years be for nothing!
Greg, meanwhile, presents Chrono as docile and mild-mannered in his childlike form, but taps into a much deeper, rugged tone whenever the devil's true powers are unleashed. It's a nice change just hearing him go for a lower voice at all, but the intensity Greg was able to achieve for this typically restrained character is simply fantastic, and admirable considering he was trying to quit smoking at the time.
I gave her my word, my promise.
To your contractor,
I have a mission. And until I make good that promise, I'm afraid I can't let you pursuers take my head!
Other highlights among the cast include Jessica Boone, who skillfully channels both the vulnerability and tenderness of little Asmaria.
I'm sorry. I'm just feeling so happy right now. It's more than I deserve. I have a power other people don't. And people have hated me for that.
Tiffany Grant, whose affinity for German roles cannot be ignored, perfectly captures Satella's haughty, aristocratic personality, maintaining an impressively stable accent that doesn't slip no matter what pressures the character is put under.
You're so fun! You're so fun! My family! My older sister! I'd make you pay!
And then there's Andy McCavin, who quite simply couldn't have done a better job portraying Ion's devious charisma. Easily one of his greatest performances as a villain.
What an inelegant weapon. But the Holy Woman wishes to retrieve her life for herself. So I will merely be a spectator, exactly like him.
If it were just Hilary and Greg carrying the whole show, I still probably would have given the English dubbing a pass, but the truth is, not one actor turns in an average performance in Chrono Crusade. They all bring about the right amount of charm and feeling, bequeathing an otherwise depressing series of events with the humanity it rightfully deserves. Viewers looking for a strictly comedic horror series may not appreciate the emotional gut punch offered by its second half, but for those craving something that elegantly ramps up in stakes and melancholy, Chrono Crusade's tale about an unlikely duo putting everything on the line should prove a thoroughly rewarding experience. I wouldn't say it's one of my top favourite series, but as far as ADV's mid-2000s library is concerned, it's a standout title that has aged remarkably well. For modern audiences looking to view the series, Funimation once again have you covered for streaming and home video releases in the US, whilst Anime Limited carries the mantle of UK distribution with their own DVD box set. Skillfully adopting the tonal switcheroo employed by many classics, you'll cry a lot more than you'll laugh with Chrono Crusade, but one thing's for sure, you won't forget the journey its 24 episodes have taken you on. I am the Anime Advocate, and I will see you all next time.